Hello, my name is Caitlin Rodriguez Rivera, and this is my Physics 2211 video lab report for Lab 4, Oscillations. Here is a table of contents. First, I would like to briefly touch upon the goals of this experiment, which was to compare the data gathered from my tracker analysis to a predictive computational model for a mass attached to a spring and to plot the energy changes computed by the model. My findings were that the observed data and the predictive model were very similar in the x direction, but had a greater time prediction in the y direction. The change in total energy was zero, with the other energy changes reflecting this. The fundamental physics principle of Newton's second law relates the net interaction between system and surrounding to the change in momentum that it undergoes, also known as acceleration, over a change in time. Some formulas of importance within this experiment include the position update formula and the velocity update formula that work in concurrence with the initial information gathered from the tracker analysis to make the predictive model move. The fundamental physics principle of the first law of thermodynamics details the total energy change in a system is equal to the work done on the system by the surroundings plus the energy exchange between the system and surroundings due to a temperature difference. The choice of system matters as it can affect the energy types present and what work is committed by the surroundings. For a system with multiple interacting parts such as ours, kinetic energy, gravitational potential energy, spring potential energy are possible, though others include rotational energy, chemical energy, and electric potential energy. The system comprises of the Earth, the spring, and the object's mass. If we throw all interacting parts that do work on our object into the system, then we have nothing left in the surroundings that will perform work. Therefore, there will be no change in the total energy of a system, and our work done by surroundings and our energy change due to temperature difference will be zero. However, since we now have multiple parts in our system, we must now consider the potential energies due to the Earth and spring. Our change in total energy equation will now comprise of kinetic energy, gravitational potential energy, and spring potential energy. The free body diagram demonstrates at static equilibrium models the forces acting on the system. Next, I would like to discuss my video analysis created on Tracker in which I plotted my coordinate axis to show the object falling in the negative y direction, demonstrating the oscillating motion of the mass on the spring. The graphs to the right track the object's position in the x and y direction and store the data in a table that was then exported to Excel and converted to a CSV file for my predictive computational model. Here are some introductory aspects to my predictive computational model, such as the initial conditions, including the mass of the object's initial position and velocity, and the start and end timestamps that were gathered from my tracker analysis. Here are the calculated constants of the model, including the gravitational constant near Earth's surface, the spring constant, and the relaxed length of the spring. The spring constant and the relaxed length of the spring were found using pre-lecture video number 52, which provided the equations and steps needed to determine the values. We can also note that the spring constant can be determined using the period of oscillation. Here are some equations that were coded into my predictive model, including the length and orientation of the spring to find the distance from the natural length of the spring, the energy types involved, the forces involved, and the velocity and position update formula. Here is a calculation loop for my predictive model in which we coded the energy changes for the system as a whole, including change in kinetic energy, change in gravitational potential energy, and change in spring potential energy, along with the code that would compare the tracker analysis measurements to the computational model prediction. Here is a video result from my predictive computational model in comparison with the tracker analysis data, in which we can see the mass moving in alternate directions creating an oscillating motion. Here are the resulting comparative graphs from my computational model and the tracker analysis data, with two resulting position versus time graphs. The x position versus time graph generally followed the same trajectory as the observed data points. However, the y position versus time graph was not as accurate at predicting the y position compared to the observed data points. The oscillation periods generally had the same size, however, the model accounted for a greater difference in time between periods. Here is a resulting energy versus time graph. We can see the change in gravitation potential energy denoted in red and the change in spring potential energy denoted in green, oscillating opposite to one another, representing how an increase in spring potential leads to a decrease in gravitational potential and vice versa. The blue oscillating line is a change in kinetic energy, though it is smaller in size compared to the other energy types. Some potential sources of error could have been an oversight when plotting point mass points or the calibration stick, since I may not have accurately sighted the center of my object. Failure to account for all forces or energy may have also provided room for error, since air resistance was not factored in. Now to address some additional questions. For my model system, the energy principle is satisfied by using the change in energy versus time graph to see that the sum of the change in kinetic, change in gravitational potential, and change in spring potential equals zero change in the total energy of the system, as seen by the orange line, which reaffirms that there is no work being done by the surroundings since there are none. Now I will discuss my findings when I compared my two oscillation period estimates. For my estimates, I took a range of 3 compared periods of oscillation and divided to get an average value. 1.65 seconds was my value in the x direction and 1.524 seconds was my value in the y direction, with the gap between the two of 0.126 seconds. The difference between my two estimates is notable as this could have impacted the spring constant value and the relaxed length of the spring found that would have gone into the spring potential energy calculation. This gap may have been caused by some previously mentioned errors such as lack of involving all impacting forces like air resistance and inaccurate tracking done by human error. Thank you for watching.